Do you want to know something interesting? The original incel was not a man. It was a woman, and her name was Alana. She created Alana's Involuntary Celibacy Project in the late 1990s, and it was this support site for lonely people of all genders, not a male grievance movement. This leads to the question, if incel culture became so male-coded and misogynistic and violent, then where did the women go? Now, they didn't vanish. Rather, they split off into these femcel spaces, and then those spaces mutilated into something more complicated than just female incels. So let's just set up the journey. Again, this video is not just what are femcels, it's about a few transformations. It's about how incel, as a term, got started, how it got captured by the Manosphere, and about how women formed these femcel spaces, which later fragmented into forums, beauty ideology, and TikTok femcelcore. The story is going to keep changing as we go along. First, it'll be like a support group story, then a manosphere story, then a beauty politics story, and then a social media aesthetic story, because all of this is interrelated and has to be talked about when we cover femcels. So first, let's go over what incel originally meant. Early involuntary celibacy research didn't treat incels just as these angry men. Rather, it included lots of different people. Partnered people not having sex, unpartnered virgins, people who had relationships before but couldn't find one now, and just people across all genders, sexualities, races, and backgrounds. The common thread among all of this was people that wanted intimacy but couldn't get it. It wasn't about hating women. Now this is where Alana comes in. She was an undergraduate student, and she made a safe space for people struggling with dating that was open to anybody, regardless of gender, race, or sexual orientation. And it was in this safe space that the term incel was first coined. But the term got taken over. So from the mid-2000s into the early 2010s, according to researcher Bobo, they say that that's when incel discourse became focused on men and got absorbed into the manosphere. I'm sure you know about the manosphere. It includes figures like Andrew Tate, and it includes like pickup artists, anti-feminist logic, all of that. And what happened was the incel identity became increasingly about men who felt that they failed this idea of ideal masculinity, and as a result, misogyny became central to the incel movement, and women were increasingly treated as outsiders or illegitimate. So let's talk about why femcels were considered like impossible. According to Johannesson and Kay, they said that women's ability to be involuntarily celibate was often disavowed. And male incels say that femcels are really volcels, which basically means that women are able to get sex easily just by being women. Other researchers say something similar. According to Sparks and Zittenberg, they say that many incels deny that women can experience involuntary celibacy at all, and this is because femininity is socially tied to being desired. So to make the deeper point, femcels are considered ineligible not just because people haven't heard of them, but because culture assumes that women will always have sexual or romantic options. So this is where the women actually went. According to the researcher Bobo, they say that women ended up creating their own quarter of the internet. So earlier on, there were these major Reddit spaces where they went on, including r/truefemcels and other femcel subreddits. But what happened was True Femcels got banned in the January of 2021. After that, it was replaced by the Pink Pill on Reddit, but that was banned as well. So what happened was they were on Reddit and they had that corner of the internet, but it ended up getting banned away. And as a result, there isn't one clean like main femcel website anymore. Instead, it's becoming like fragmented across the internet. So what were femcel spaces and what are they actually about? It's not just like I can't get sex. It's a lot more for femcels. It's about loneliness, rejection, body shame, looksism, feeling invisible, and really just wanting validation from other women who get validation online. So according to Bobo, they say that femcels were critical of their bodies, experienced loneliness in offline life, and they used these forums as places to find validations in their identities, womanhood, and personhood. So the problem is they just weren't seen at all, not just about dating. And so they may wonder, are they even recognized as a woman if they're undesirable? According to Sparks and Zeidenberg, they say that women who struggle to form relationships may feel their femininity is threatened because women are culturally cast as objects of desire. So what are they without that? So what's the difference between femcels and male incels? Well, one of the strongest repeating findings is that male incels often externalize blame, femcels internalize blame, meaning that male incels are likely to blame society for their position. Meanwhile, femcels will blame themselves. So it's like this thing where there's both occurring at the same time. Number one, it's the recognition of looksism and how society places so much pressure on women to be attractive, which could be considered feminist. But simultaneously, there's, especially on subreddits like Vindicta, there's all this encouragement to become a Stacy and follow those expectations in order to become successful, which would be seen as anti-feminist. So it's both of these occurring really at the same time. So some of it's like changing the hierarchy, but others it's climbing it. So let's talk about how this mutated into beauty strategy, or the pink pill. So Vindicta shows that femceldom didn't just survive bans, it mutated, and it moved from like support discussion spaces among the early femcels to this more strategic, beauty-focused, looks-maxing space. It's about beauty as being a woman, and you shouldn't have a victim mentality, and beauty is objective, and they're all about helping unattractive female users improve their appearance and allure. And this is part of what makes the "where are femcels now" question hard to answer, because it's transformed. And now there's femcels that are in places that are not always explicitly called femcel forums, but they still carry femcel concerns. So places like Vindicta and others, they talk about ugliness, exclusion. They tend to be female only and focused on beauty optimization, with the resentment towards the feel beautiful feminism. So what's happened is femcel discourse has spread into a broader pink pill beauty political ecosystem. So besides those, let's TikTok femcelcore. So according to Johansson and Kay, they say there's now two articulations of femceldom. There's this traditional or original femceldom, which is text-based, detailed, and it has communities based around sexual and romantic exclusion. But then there's also something new called femcelcore, which is ironic, aestheticized, sad girl vibe. It's on TikTok. It's about mood, dissociation, numbness, and disappointment in heterosexuality. And note the scale. The femcel hashtag alone had 848.2 million views on TikTok when they wrote the paper. So what this tells us is that the subculture didn't just migrate platforms, it changed media form. It went from being these forum posts with long confessions and detailings of ideology to becoming just more of a vibe or aesthetic with a short form mood performance. And this means that while the old femcels maybe wrote essays on the internet, the new femcel internet is about performing a mood. Okay, something else relevant when talking about femcels in relation to incels are femcels dangerous? So according to current literature, they do not treat femcels as the same kind of public violence threat as male incels. So according to Sparks and Zeidenberg, they say that there's no documented radicalization or systemic planning of harm in femcel spaces, though there's frustration and hostility. And another thesis says that femcels are not currently threatening in the way incels have been, and the community is more of a coping and support system than an attack pipeline. But that doesn't mean that the community still isn't harmless. And there is a new paper on femcels that show that they have lower sexual self-esteem, sexual satisfaction, and they have more sexual anxiety, depression, fear of relationships, and sexual preoccupation. So again, because femcels tend to internalize failure rather than externalizing and blaming society, they tend to be less violent. The femcel ideology can be very psychologically harmful. So to conclude, where did the femcels go? Well, they started out on these early mixed gender support spaces, including the woman that actually coined the incel term. And it went to Reddit femcel communities like the Pink Pill and related female-only sites. And now it's kind of spread to Vindicta-style Pink Pill beauty forums that are more about looks maxing, and also this somewhat ironic TikTok femcelcore and this broader Manosphere. So this isn't just like about celibacy independently, it's about how loneliness can become part of your identity, how beauty is this hierarchical thing that is accepted and non-accepted simultaneously, and how internet platforms can turn these worldviews, things that are so powerful, and turn it just into vibes and aesthetics. And femcels aren't interesting just because they're the female incels, but because they're an example of what happens when loneliness gets processed through beauty culture, platform logic, and internet ideology.